it has been a taboo subject. The historical consequences of slavery and racial apartheid have been a traumatizing experience because we have not been able to heal from centuries of a continuous nightmare, from slavery to Reconstruction to Jim Crow. Mental illness for many may be seen as a weakness or even a moral failing. The monologues and dialogues represent different diagnoses as the therapist weaves in and out as an anchor to the play. We must understand that learning and reaching out for help is a step toward acceptance and healing. The play highlights the following: schizophrenia, anxiety and depression, complicated grief, post-traumatic stress disorder, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, explosive anger disorder. It is my goal to bring awareness of mental health to the African American community. Thank you.
This is my story. This is my song. This is my story. This is my song. This is my story. This is my song. My dear sisters, you know the Sojourner told the truth all 6 feet of her coal black self, and with a Dutch accent. She said, "Ain't I a woman?" The question that hung heavy in the air, ice cold and unanswered. The question that still echoes across the centuries. The warrior queens wrapped in regal blackness. That is my assurance. So I am lifting my voice. Ain't I a woman? I was that woman standing on the auction block, desperately trying to hide her nakedness before gawking lust-filled eyes and hands groping her body, just like they did horse flesh. My sister's sun-baked and thirsty, blue-black body straining to listen to the sounds of the sea, remembering the waters that lulled us to sleep, trying to hear the cries of Mother Africa because her daughters are gone. My sisters consider 3/5 of a person. Ain't I a woman? I was that woman that learned not to cry, to swallow her sorrow so completely. That woman the buck busted in her cabin and used her body, took what should have been hers to give in love. I was that woman, his reminder, I own your body. That woman that was rode savage by a man that ignored the hatred in her eyes. The woman that mourned for all the lives taken, who sat in the dark and allowed herself to cry tears only when she knew it was safe and no one would hear. That woman that went into the woods with her child, screaming in agony because it was better for them to see death than life as a slave. That woman that always bypasses her own pain to rescue another. My sisters, This is our story. This is our song. Ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? I was that woman, struggling, washing, cooking, cleaning, free to scrub first for no wages and then low wages, struggling against poverty, screaming inside, standing perilously close to the precipice, afraid of falling off into the abyss. Ain't I a woman? I was that woman, unable to hear the words of warning CUNY, celebrating her beauty, because he was right. Dishwater brings no images. Rough hands, full lips, kinky hair, full breasts, wide hips. Where are these images? So we raised our daughters and loved our sons, not knowing that our girls looked on and despite what we said, would follow our actions, our trail of tears. But we convinced ourselves that our daughters would be all right, because if they learned to swallow their sadness and wear a mask, they would survive. They would push hurt so deep down to a place where it could not be found. Ain't I a woman? I was that woman stepped over because of the fascination with Miss Anne, because our men preferred the feel of creamy white skin than my blackness. She was part of the American dream, the dream that excluded me. So the justification was irreconcilable differences. Because a protest made me angry, a gesture aggressive, an action dangerous, a request controlling, a denial unreasonable. Ain't I a woman? But no wars were fought for us, my sisters, not for our honor. Our face didn't launch 1,000 ships. There were no Trojans, not even the one that you convinced me you couldn't wear because you said, you know I can't feel you. A black boy's whistle cost him his life. But what about me? Ain't I a woman? We sit there vulnerable, but trying not to feel vulnerable, telling ourselves that we are not competing. We are not baby mama number 4, that we are special. We were not deceived. We indulge in self-hatred, self-deprecation, and then turn on our sisters, our hair, our lips, our skin, our bodies, thick thighs, big butts, breasts, wide feet and hips. Hottentot Venus became a freak show, preferring a Eurocentric standard of beauty. Ain't I a woman? I am still the African queen, the Nubian princess, fending off an onslaught of stereotypical images of vamp, tramp, and hypersexual. So please, when did we become associated with words like chicken head, bird, bitch, whore, hoochie, skank, peace, and thought? Ain't I a woman? No other woman in history has been so maligned, so disrespected. Sojourner called it right. All 6 feet of her black coal self. The question was never answered, and I am still waiting. My dear sisters, through the ages, we lift our voices and sing. Ain't I a woman? So where are our defenders? Where are our protectors? Where is the cavalry, the army? My sisters, be assured, you come from the bloodlines of kings and queens. You are regal.
See, they gave me this parachute and said, you need to have this just in case, so you can land softly. So I took the parachute, tucked it in my back pocket. When I take off in flight, I can't be worried about if I don't land. Of course I'm going to land. I say, Henry, you good? I was a pilot in the war, in all wars, WW2. I shot down squadrons of German planes. They fell to the earth and they crashed and burned. But that man, he told me that.
Henry, you didn't shoot down German planes. You were never in the war.
I don't call you no lie, but I know what I did. You said I was never in the war. I know I was. I know what I did. I know where I was during the war. I was on a tiny island in the South Pacific. We parachuted on that island. It was night. It was so dark. We tucked in those chutes away and we made camp. Our mission was to capture that island for the United States.
Henry, you're not old enough to have been in the war. Remember, you were born in 1975. That was 30 years after the war ended. Have you been reading about the war?
Why are you trying to tell me about me being in the war as a paratrooper? I told you it was the most intense fighting I ever seen. We lost a lot of men, but we finally took that island.
How long have you been on this island, Henry? Did you take your medication today?
Man, go on away from me with that and go bother somebody else. Man, you interrupting my story. See, I had to find my way back to the ship. So I ran up this hill and I took a leap and I was flying. The wind caught my chute and I was flying high. Yeah. The soldiers on the ship, they didn't know it was me. I yelled, hey, y'all, it's me, it's Henry. I'm coming in for a landing. The captain took one look at me. He thought I was the enemy. I could hear the sirens sounding, and they was running all over the deck. I yelled again. I said, hey, y'all, it's me, Henry. I'm requesting assistance to land. That's when I saw the guns pointing in my direction. They fired the guns, and I was able to dodge the first one and the second one, but then they got me. And that's when I remembered this parachute in my back pocket. I was told to take them if there was ever an emergency. So I took them and I felt myself soft to the earth. The captain looked at me and he said, "Oh, did you do that, Henry?" We were shooting at you, and you dodged the bullets and landed safely. That was an unbelievable act of heroism. I'm recommending you for the Medal of Valor. But first, you have to go for your debriefing so you can tell them where the enemy is hiding. You have to wear this special jacket. It'll keep you warm because it's a cold day and you're soaking wet. Okay?
Henry, do you remember why you're here? You remember what happened? They found you on the top of the HSBC building. You were standing on the roof in your underwear while it was snowing. You were demanding to see the General of the Pacific Fleet.
I was demanding to see the general because they were shooting at me. They kept saying, get him, get him. I kept yelling, I'm a soldier. I ain't the enemy. They thought I was a spy. How could they think I was a spy? I mean, I was flying. I identified myself.
Henry, can you tell me what happened before you started thinking about the war?
I don't know. My sister told me that I'm gonna have to go to a home. I said, no, I'll be good. And she said, no, it's not that. She said she's moving to Virginia. She told me I could come too if I wanted to. What? I told her, I don't know nobody in Virginia. She said, Henry, you know me. I'll take you with me. Oh, I don't know, Dr. Grayson. I don't know, want to go to Virginia and get sold into slavery. You know slavery isn't really over. They're trying to make us think it's over. People just disappear off the street. Like they go in a police station, it's a holding pen. They get sold back into slavery. It's illegal to do that to people.
Henry, slavery's been over for 150 years.
How you know slavery been over for 150 years? You know there still is slavery in this country. You're just not asking the right questions. You need to ask some of the people who have to carry a parachute in their back pocket. See what they have to say about it. She's trying to be nice to me. She don't really want me to come live with her. She's married to a monster. See, her husband, he hates me. He told her that she just put me out and forget about me. But Miranda's a good woman. She's a lot like my mother. Mama made her promise that she would take care of me. She did. She tried. I didn't mean to cause so many problems. I had a hard time with my medication. I think this one's working well. I get off that other stuff. I gained so much weight and it made me feel like a zombie. See, I couldn't move. I won't feel like no zombie. But do you know that I see zombies out on the street? Yeah, my brother-in-law, he's the head zombie. They eat people. Yeah, they eat people. They lick their lips. And when they see me, they say, hey, next, Henry, we coming for you. And no, he told them where I live. And you know what I call my medication? I call it straight jacket. Sometimes I feel like I'm soaring over rooftops in the traffic. I can look down at the world and laugh at the tiny creatures. I say, hey, tiny creatures. Oh, what y'all doing down there? And the tiny creatures yell back, why don't you come down and see so we can beat your ass, you crazy bastard? Why? Why they got to be so mean? Why they got to talk to people like that? They call me crazy. I ain't crazy.
So why did you go to the roof of the HSBC building?
I was trying to touch the clouds. I saw the faces of friends. They were laughing and having fun. They said, Henry, what you doing down there? Oh, where's your wings? I asked them how they became clouds. They said they was always clouds. They flew away because they couldn't stand to see what's going on.
I think we need to change your medication. Okay, Henry? I'm going to prescribe Prolixin. Let's try it for a while, see if it helps.
No,
I'll see you in a few weeks and we'll see how you're doing.
Dr. Grace, I don't want you to change my medication. I done told you I don't want to feel like no zombie. Please, please, man, don't you see what's happening? Are you blind or something? There's trouble all over the land, all over for that matter. I understand what's going on. Why don't you? You can give me more medications so I won't see. You're supposed to be the great doctor. Well, why I got to tell you how things are? It's bad out there. It's bad. I see what's happening. People are changing and they're making loud noises and it hurts my ears. Ah, stop.
Hello, my name is Hello, my name is Felicia Reed Watt. I'm a mental health therapist that specializes in trauma. He often struggles with how to navigate their relationship and lives in fear of being rejected and abandoned on a daily basis. Most of all, they live in fear of not being in control of their emotions or their life. They often think in black and white, right or wrong, fair or unfair, good or bad, all in order to feel more in control. They live in constant judgment of themselves and others, which oftentimes can decrease their ability to make effective life choices, which may lead them to have adverse consequences.
7, 6, 5. Count the rest yourself.
Dreams come from a multitude of busyness. The thoughts in flight, incorruptible incidences of day moments spilling over into night, spreading a strange stain on the landscape of the mind, catching and inspecting events, time, and people, scooping them into a collection of the sleeping imagination. That sounds good, huh? I like to write. I used to sit and write for hours. You see, I was a lonely kid. I didn't have any friends. They said that I was too weird. So I let my imagination soar. I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, what's the matter with you? Why don't people like you? I tried to dress the way I saw other girls so that I could fit in. I used to come up to a group of girls and they would say, get away from me, Vanessa. Go somewhere else. I said that no one likes me. I don't have friends. I used to think that my mother didn't want me. I thought that when she went to work, she was not going to come back. If she left, something bad was going to happen. My life was a constant tragedy. I told some girls that my mother left me in a store and then walked away. was wandering around for hours looking for her. The people at the store got on the loudspeaker and called closing time. So they called the police because I was abandoned. They felt so sorry for me after that. I looked at my face. I thought that I was ugly. My face looked irregular. Everyone was prettier than me. I stared at myself for hours and wished I looked better than I did. I would ask my mother if I was pretty, and she said, Vanessa, you need to stay out the mirror. You're vain. That's what you are. I found that anger worked well when things didn't go my way. I wanted to be liked and I wanted to belong. I would bring candy to school and give it out. They were real nice to me until it ran out. There was a girl I wanted to be friends with. I gave her a huge Reese cup. She looked at it and said, thanks, and walked away. So brought in another Reese cup the next day. And I said, I was hoping we could be friends. She looked at the candy and said, I don't want to be your friend. You're too weird. And then she walked away. So I screamed and carried on, and I found a way to twist the story so that the girl was mean to me, got in trouble for something she didn't even do. Maybe she hit me. Maybe she didn't. It's all a blur. When I finally found a friend, I was happy. I was so happy to have someone to talk to and to do things with. She was so kind and trusting. I was possessive and overbearing, almost jealous. I didn't want her to be friends with anyone else but me. I told her that if she didn't want to do things with me, she really wasn't my friend. I yelled at her one day in the hallway. She walked away, and that was the end of our friendship. I didn't try to have another friend. I kept thinking that I was a horrible person. So that was why people stayed away from me. I started going out with Leon right before Christmas. I thought he was nice. We met at a party. My cousin said, come on, Vanessa, just come for a little while. It'll be fun. You might meet someone nice if you give yourself a chance. So I went. And that's where I met him. We hit it off. I told him I didn't date much because I don't like phony men. I told him straight off that I don't have any filters. I keep it real. He said, babe, I understand that you want a real man. I'm the real deal. We started seeing each other. You know, we were an item. Wanted him to know how much I liked him. And I didn't want him to leave me. So we went shopping. We went shopping because I told him I was looking for a certain pair of shoes to go with this suit I bought. I completely forgot about my shoes. He tried on all these shirts, and I encouraged him to get them, as well as some pants. He said he liked. I spent like $500. I knew it was a lot, but I saw how good he looked in those clothes. I wanted him to have them. He told me that he could pay for his own stuff, but I wanted to buy them for him. It was my gift so that he would know he was special. He used to come to my place sometimes. I told him he could move in. He said that he wanted to keep his own place. I started to wonder why. I asked him where he lived and when was I going to be invited over. He laughed and said he had roommates and he wanted to respect their privacy. Told him I just wanted to see where he lived. He said that he would cook dinner and have me over as soon as his schedule permitted. I started to think he was lying. He had another girl, and that's why he didn't invite me over. I started to panic, thinking that he was going to leave me. So I followed him. Yes, I did. I followed him because I thought he was trying to end this relationship. I parked a distance away so that he couldn't see the car. He lived in a nice neighborhood. I waited. I saw him leave with 2 other people, a man and a woman. He didn't see me. The woman was his girlfriend. I know it. I was in a rage. I was so mad. I know he's trying to play me. I thought to myself, that's the reason he ain't invited me to his house. He's trying to leave me. Who does he think he is? I saw the girl get in her car and I followed her. I thought, who did this bitch think she is? She got out the car and went into the store. I waited. When she came back, I was standing in front of her car. I asked her if she knew Leon, and she said yes. I asked her if it was her boyfriend. She said no, and what is this about? I told her that he had been seeing me for the past 3 months, and that's my man. She hurried and got in the car, locked the door, and drove away. I yelled, "You better drive off, bitch." I went home and threw all his clothes out the window. I watched them fly on the wind. I was screaming to the top of my lungs, throwing all his shit out on the line. He came by and saw all his expensive shirts and suits outside and told me I was crazy. Can you imagine calling me crazy? I threw a pot at him. It missed. He picked up his clothes and left. I had to smoke a blunt to calm down. Listening to Roberta Flack. Yeah, that's old school. I love the song. The first time ever I saw your face. I started drinking this bottle of Merlot that I was saving. listening to Roberta, thinking about Leon. This feeling of alone sank like a lead ball. I always felt alone, unloved. Miss Leon. I started to think about him. I don't know why I did that. After all, I had no reason to think he was cheating. I wanted him back. I tried to apologize. I went over and knocked on his door. He told me to go away before he called the police. He said the relationship was over. I had to explain. You know what I mean? I was sorry that I got so mad. I couldn't help it. I started to cry. And I said, Vanessa, why do you ruin every relationship that you have? Why? I got into a fight a few times with women at the club, looking at me, rolling their eyes. I thought I heard them saying something about me and then laughed. So I went after them. Some guys called me outside. I was cussing and yelling. I told them if I got loose, I would go back and kick their asses again. Well, I can't go back there anymore because of all my fighting. I saw Leon at Wegmans. He saw me and went the other way fast. Oh, yeah. I found out from a girl that knows him that the woman I saw was his twin sister. Ain't that something? He was telling the truth.
My name is Ron K. Lattimore Tapp, or Dr. Tapp. I am a licensed psychologist, and I currently work as the Assistant Director of Multiculturalism at a local university, where I see a wide range of clients, do a lot of training, helping developing clinicians learn how to attend more effectively to issues of culture and identity as they try to help people heal. And I do a lot of outreach and trainings and workshops and the like locally and sometimes nationally. I'm also a member of the Association of Black Psychologists, which has helped to enrich my understanding and approach to helping people in Black and Brown communities heal from a wide range of mental health struggles and what we call disorders or impact. You think of great thinkers within our community have been saying this for years. James Baldwin has a quote, I think, effective to be, woke or aware in this country, to be Black and aware in this country, enraged most of the time. Because when you are aware of what really is going on, how the system is set, the things that you have to overcome to just be, that is angering, it's enraging. And there are theorists like Dr. Joy DeGruy, who in her looking at and detailing the impacts of this intergenerational, this trauma, how it's passed down, not just that impact, but that impact compounded with the ongoing and ever-present oppression. One of the symptoms of that, she says, that we tend to see is ever-present anger. So if there's an ever-present anger and people who feel like they have less control of that or ability to make change, are dealing with that, it is a bit like a powder keg, and it might at times explode. Like there's a Langston Hughes poem that says something to that effect, and what happens to a dream deferred. So when we think of that, then the simple diagnosis of something like intermittent explosive anger might explain a bit, but it can also really miss a lot. And that the anger can start to show up in terms of violence toward that cultural misorientation. Because that this anger is violence toward ourselves, toward other people in our community, destructive things. And those begin to really give you the detailed pieces of what we might need to address, the mentality we need to address, the behaviors we need to address, the thinking that we need to address to help us heal, so that we're not just holding all of that anger and frustration. We're not just continuing to live feeling completely out of control. We are really able to reconnect to the things that truly make us healthy and whole, and begin.
I had a dream one night that I was standing near a frozen pond. Now, I saw a man
Greetings.
under the ice.
My name is Dr. Kia Inyame. I am a counseling educator with Sankofa Family Counseling in Rochester, New York.
Back. I'm talking
and
to
today
you,
I'm
fool.
going to talk a little bit about
So
depression.
And I saw a sledgehammer lying in the grass. So I took the hammer and I started to smash the ice. The man floated along, still talking trash. So I followed. The hammer came down on the ice. Then I heard a sound and saw this crack coming toward me. The ice came way and I fell in. His laughter got louder and louder because I was struggling to find a way out. I woke up screaming. I jumped out of bed and I stood there just struggling to breathe, and the dream frightened me. It made me mad because I'd been frightened. Me. I felt my anger rising because I kept thinking that maybe this was a warning that someone was out to get me. I thought about my old man. When I was growing up, all they had to do was breathe wrong, and he was beating my ass. If I moved too slow, I got slapped. If I moved too fast, I got slapped. One day, I got real sick, and they had to take me to the hospital. And I was there for a while, and I can't remember the cause, but they told my mother that she should watch me. They told her that it was something to do with my brain, something about the prefrontal cortex. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was all bullshit. My father, he stayed away from me for a long time. He was afraid that it might have been something he did, because he was always knocking me around, upside my head. It was kind of puny at first, but by the time I got into junior high school, I started to grow. I got bigger and stronger, and when I was 13, I started to see the wolf. I saw him in the mirror when I got dressed in the morning. I would take a second look because I saw these gray eyes looking back at me. I felt this anger welling up inside of me over small things. One day, I was on my way home, and these dudes were running around the corner. One pushed me by accident, and I yelled, "Yo, man, watch where you going." And the big dude said, "Yo, sorry, my bad." But he was laughing. I could feel him pacing. My heart started to pound, and he was clawing at my throat, and I could taste blood. And then he howled. "Oh!" I said, "You better be sorry. You need to watch where you're going." The big dude came up to me and said, "Yo, man, you deaf or something?" I said, "My bad." And he pushed me. The wolf leaped. I picked up a rock and I hit him. I blacked out after that. I just saw red. Someone called the police. I ran. I heard that dude was really hurt. The wolf laid down, licking his paws. I didn't go back to school. I left the house, but I went around the corner and waited until my parents were gone. I was out of school for a week when the police came back to the house looking for me. Someone must have told them where I lived. My father answered the door, and I could hear his voice booming all over the house. I was in the basement, hiding. He told my mother that he was going to kill me, try and kill me, when he got hold of me. My mother pleaded, saying, "You're too hard on the child." He told her to shut up. And when he went upstairs, I crept out of the house and didn't come back. The wolf was out of control. I kept getting into fights for stupid things. I don't ride the bus because last time I did this, guy, he looked at me and I thought he was disrespecting me, called me out my name. "Don't fuck with me, I'll kill you." I leaped to the back and started to pound him. And his friends jumped on me and I felt the wolf. And I saw him attacking his white teeth. I saw him thrashing. The door opened. I just jumped out and ran down the streets. I felt myself calm down. I was arrested, sent to the juvenile facility, and was diagnosed with an anger disorder. I just looked at him and shrugged. The wolf was pacing again. Usually when I'm outside, I wear dark glasses because I don't want anyone to see my eyes. I don't want them to see me watching them. They might wake the wolf. I was allowed to come home after a year and I had to see a therapist. He looked at me and said, "Marcus, tell me what happens before you feel this anger." I looked at him and said, "Man, leave me alone. You don't know anything about me." He wouldn't have understood. If I was telling him that I could feel a wolf inside of me, that I saw his face every day when I looked in the mirror, that I hear him growl and feel his restlessness. He has a hunger that I can't control sometimes. He's a predator. I feel like that. Constantly seeking, looking for something that isn't there. I had a girlfriend. We broke up because of my anger. I got angry one night and slapped her and then put my foot through her television. I picked up a DV charge, served a year in jail, and now I have 4 years on probation. I discovered that if I smoke when I felt the wolf was coming on, he went back to sleep when I was high. I would see his white fangs and his giant claws curl up in the cloud of smoke, and I would just sit there and laugh because he looked bewildered. He couldn't really see through the smoke. I learned that if I could stop the wolf if I smoked. So
we are really able to
I smoked all the time. My PO said that I had to go to treatment. I have an addiction. I have cannabis use disorder severe. But it keeps the wolf away. Yeah. When I'm high, I just sit quiet and imagine myself like cool jazz, crooning notes,
feeling completely
lulling the ladies,
really
in a
able to
love
reconnect to the
that I
things.
see when I close my eyes. The wolf is curled up there and next to my feet, bewildered. I'm calm. I'm amazed at the sirens, because the city is an animal that never sleeps. There's a momentary silence, but it is soon shattered by the sound of breaking glass. I look up at curls of smoke and throw back my head, laughing. Wow.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Kia Inyame. I am a counseling educator with Sankofa Family Counseling in Rochester, New York. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about depression and grief and loss. Well, grief and depression are very similar. Each has a distinct experience for the person who suffered from them, making it important to understand the differences. The DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that is used to make diagnosis, recognize that while grief and mental health disorders, or major mental health disorders, or major depression episodes, are distinct and they can coexist, right? Grief can sometimes trigger a major depressive episode. So some of the similarities that grief has with major depressive disorder includes intense sadness, insomnia, poor appetite, weight loss. Grief can also develop into complicated grief, which is another high level that does not seem to dissipate with time. You know, it's just like you're just grieving all the time and doesn't seem like time helps at all. Now, some of the differences is that grief tends to decrease over time, usually, right? And occurs in waves. You know, like when you're triggered, if something reminds you of what you've lost, whether it's a loved one or what have you. You know, it may feel better for a while in certain situations, and then something may trigger you. Depression, on the other hand, tends to be more persistent and pervasive. You know, depression tends to exhibit symptoms that are the opposite of those that are usually experienced with grief, right? For example, you know, feelings of guilt not related to grief, morbid preoccupation with worthlessness, sluggishness or hesitant of a confused speech, thoughts of suicide, hallucination, and delusions, right? So these things, and particularly mental health disorders, you should see a psychotherapist or a counselor for this issue so that you can move forward and get better. Again, we are at Sankofa Family Counseling, 1400 Portland Avenue, Rochester, New York. If this pertains to you, reach out to us.
I feel hollow inside, like there's nothing there. Whatever was there has been gone a long time ago. It seeped out, spilled on the ground.
I feel hollow inside, a pain that will not go away. Like I fell in a pit and I just keep falling. Every time I try to hold on to something, it slips through my fingers.
My pain is real. The emptiness is real.
I move along in slow motion. I feel like I am no one. There is nothing to me. I'm not real.
I'm not real. My story don't matter. Not to them. Who cares?
Who recognizes my pain? Who sees it? Who understands?
I am alone. Who wants to hear what I got to say? Who?
Who?
I could feel the sweat running down my face. It was a hot, dry summer. The heat curled around my neck, blowing his hot breath on my shoulders. Master was fretting because there weren't no rain in weeks. He told boss man to get water on the fields. So we was running water, filling barrels in the creek. We hauled water barrels and barrels, but the crops was dying. I could hear the night sounds, see the light falling, sitting in front of my door watching the chillins play. My feet was aching from standing so long, and the cookhouse was so hot, I could barely breathe in there. I walked across the yard to the well and drew up some water. Mama Daisy come up, face covered. She looked at me and say, "Bless you, child." I whispers back, "Bless you, Mama Daisy. How you be feeling?" And she reached her hand out and let it rest on my arm, and her fingers were like ice in the heat of July. How Henry and that child be, she say. I surprised. And I say, they be just fine. Thank you kindly for asking. And she look at my belly, because she see I'm in the family way again. And she move in and whisper, keep 'em close. Hold 'em close to you. Then she cover her face and move away in the darkness. Now I'm so cold. I shiver and pull my shawl over my shoulders as the wind pick up. And I close my eyes, shutting out the fear. I walk back to the house and I see our son. He come up, I see our son and Henry, and he come up from the fields, bones are weary. I saw Micah be out playing with the other children. They run and hide and play with sticks and make believe they souls. Soldiers in a battle they can't win. They don't own themselves. Not feet or hands or legs. None of it be theirs. To see a child play, they don't see, they don't know. It's going to be a sad day when they finds out that somebody else lay claim to the very hand they heads. I see Henry, and he glad 'cause it ain't no moonlight. He glad 'cause there ain't no moon, no shadows good for getting away. He go in the back and try to wash off, and I call Micah 'cause it's time to eat. Papa's home. I learned how to make good strong soap. Make enough so that the others have some too. Don't nobody want to walk around smelling like an old pole cat. They say my soap be the best. We jumped the broom 2 years ago, me and Henry. Our members, they give us 1 day off. And we was all tired from the day before. That's all we had. Mama June made us a cake, and Mama Daisy took a broom and made it so pretty. And the folks brought in a little something so as to make the day real special. My Henry big and strong. Our first nights, I lay in his arms and he tell me we gonna be free one day. He gonna work and buy us. He say, Liza, you just wait. We ain't always gonna be his property. I swear to you. I put my hand over his mouth and he covered my fingers, my face with kisses that were hot and sweet. He told me that I be his queen, and I cried. I ain't never been called queen before. Next day I wakes up and I make our meal. We quiet in the dark and then he out the house at dawn. Those was the sweet days. Them 2 years fly, and I remember when I found out we gonna have us a child. Was about 4 months along. The master slapped Henry on the back. But I hear him tell his friends that he been counting the number of babies that's gonna come born. He know that some of them babies be his. The missus know it too. She see him coming down to the slave quarters late night. She be mean and pinch and slap the women. And then she gets sent to the fields. Micah be our son. He black like his mama and papa. He's a pretty child. My son. I help him bathe, put on the shirt I made and send him to the ham and the bacon. She tell the child Ellie to get her some eggs from the hen house. And she warns her that she better not drop near one of them. The child come back in with the eggs in the apron and wearing something that looked like it want to be a smile. Mama Daisy wink at her and give her some hominy in a bowl and tell her to sit over in the corner so the missus don't see her. She not supposed to be eating before family. But the child be hungry and she's so thin. Then Flo come flying through the door loud. They got Henry and Micah in the wagon. Massa done sold Henry and Micah. I know I was screaming, but weren't nothing coming out. I ran down those steps and then my Henry and Micah screaming for his mama. Ray Boy and Jonah be in the wagon too. And Ray Boy never looked up. Jonah looked like he ready to fight. And the boss man see us coming and he warned us saying, y'all better get back. He hold up that gun and he say, I'll shoot. He say, I don't want to shoot you, so you best get back. And I keep a coming. He fired at the ground near my foot. And I can hear my baby screaming, Mama! Mama! My baby! Give me back my baby! Henry, Micah, oh Lord, don't let him take my child, my man. Oh Lord. Boss man hold up that gun. He say, Liza, I mean what I say. You best stop. Big Mo scooped me up because he know that I'm out of my head screaming to get my baby. I could see a tear on Henry's cheek. They all chained. My baby chained too. He's screaming. Henry look up and say, I love you, Liza. I'm going to come back for you. I'm going to come back for you. And then the wagon pull off. And it could fire off and I couldn't see it no more. I could hear the sound of my child screaming. And then the wind come along and snatched it up and carried it away. I felt a big pain. And then another. And I fell to the ground. And then I felt the dark swallow me whole. Reuben, this going kind of fast. It's almost like I got to read fast for whatever reason. Because it's all so close together, I don't get a break, like to breathe or nothing. I don't know if you...
We had one child.
Hello, welcome to Elamine Turner Mental Health Counseling. My name is Aaliyah Elamine Turner, and I'm going to talk with you a little bit about anxiety and depression, just to help you better understand what you'll be watching. So, with depression, some of the common symptoms that can show for depression is increased sadness, increased agitation, change in appetite, change in sleep, loss of concentration, physical pain that can't be accounted for by another medical condition, suicidal ideation, loss of motivation and interest in doing things that you once enjoyed. So those are just some of the common symptoms that can show up with depression. And with anxiety, some of the common symptoms that can show up with anxiety is increased heart racing or sweaty palms.
2 minutes.
Feelings and thoughts of like apprehension, assuming the worst, or hypervigilance, increased irritability, increase of bowel movements or increased urination. So those are just some of the common symptoms that can show up with anxiety. It's important to note that anxiety and depression can present for everyone in a different way. If you like additional information on mental health conditions, I would encourage you to go to the National Alliance on Mental Illness website, and they're at www.nami.org, or contact their helpline at 1-800-950-6264. If you'd like additional information on my private practice, I'd encourage you to go to my website at www.etmhc.com. I want to thank you again for watching this. I know that mental health, it's not always an easy discussion to talk about, but it's important that we continue to talk about it to deal with the stigma of mental illness out there. And if you or someone you really care about is struggling with mental illness, I encourage you to seek help, contacting your primary care physician or reaching out to your local mental health provider in your area, or utilizing the National Alliance on Mental Illness to see what's available. Thank you again for watching.
Sat upright. Mama Daisy sitting there by the fire, stirring in the pot.
A
She
black
poured
boy
in
is
the bowl
king.
and brought it to me and say, "Eat this, child." She told me it's gonna be all right. She say, "God know, He see." She say very slow, "The child I carry is gone. I lost our baby. I don't want no food. I don't eat for days. I ain't got to work. Not the next day, or the day after. The end of the month, I back in the cookhouse. Nella look at me and say, "You don't look good." Mrs. come in a few times and don't even look at me. Then she tell Nella I need to stop dragging and get the floor scrubbed. My arms and legs feel like lead. It's hard to raise them. I ain't moving fast enough. Mrs. get mad and she slap me and tell me that I better move. Mama Daisy pulled me into the kitchen after she leave and give me something in a spoon. I got sick and went outside. My belly come up everywhere. I fell and just lay there. They got the wagon and took me back to my house. Mrs. get mad 'cause she say, I just a lazy and want to get out of work. So she tell me that if I don't stop acting, she gonna tell the boss man to whip me. I stay back in the quarters and help Mama Katie with the chillings. I just said, not really much good. But she say she liked the company. I think it'll want not bone. Maybe it'd be better not coming here with all this sorrow and take another child. They tells me after a month I need it back in the cookhouse. But I still doing poorly. I sore. I feels like I fell in a hole and I can't get out. I walk out to get wood and fell down. No power to get up. Mrs. real mad and say to whip me. Boss man come and say, "Get up, girl." And he grabbed me by my arm and then rip off my dress and strike my back. He keep whipping me. I feel, but I ain't move, 'cause I don't care. I could see blood and pieces of my flesh flying in the air. And he say, "Get up, nigga, get up." Then he dropped the whip and stormed away, sweating and cussing. Mama Daisy tell Big Mo to take me to the house so she can clean those cuts. And everybody stopped praying. Mrs. Cosmo bucked for doctor to come see me. He look at me and tell her, "This here nigga gal has got melancholia." Now, I ain't never seen one, 'cause niggas ain't smart enough to know to be sad. What they got to be sad for?
I have never seen one with melancholia, 'cause niggas are not smart enough to know about sadness. What do they have to be sad about? Gentlemen, there is a concern about doctors that are lunatics. Now, I have been a doctor in these parts for more than 20 years, and I consider myself an expert in the care of the darkies. It has come to the attention of the legislature that something must be done, as some slave owners have noted that there have arisen cases of insanity among them. It is suggested that you can place your niggas in an asylum where they'll be able to get the care they need, but this will be at your own expense. Once they're better, they'll be returned to. After all, they get the best of care on the plantations. They are fed, clothed, and housed, so the faster they can return to their normal work, the better. I have noted that there are several mental illnesses among the slaves. I have identified these sicknesses. One is drapetomania, which causes them to run away, and diaesthesia ethiopica, which causes laziness. It is my professional opinion that any slave that exhibits these two diseases must be dealt with. Beat them if they are lazy. This will help restore them to sanity. Melancholia among the niggas is unheard of. As stated before, they're simply not smart enough to know what to be sad about.
He say, "What they got to be sad for? We takes good care of 'em. He ain't seen the whipping scars on my back." He tell the missus, "You can send her away to a place, but it's gonna cost you. I say you sell her. She ain't gonna be no good. A darky sick in the head? No telling how long she gonna be like this. Best let someone stay close and keep a watch. If she kill herself, that money gonna be gone."
Gentlemen, this will bolster the pro-slavery argument. According to the census of 1840, the best place for a nigger is in slavery. Slavery is salutary. Freedom is pathological, as it has been noted that there are more insane free niggers in the North than in the South. Yes, we are being compassionate to the inferior race. What would they do if we didn't take care of them? I ask you.
Melancholia, he said. I thinks to myself, in that case, all us got it. All us is sad. I feel hollow inside. Who sees my pain? Who?
I remember I was in labor 36 hours before he came. Michael Henry Christopher Lawrence II. Mike wanted to make him the second and said that he didn't want people calling his son Junior. I said, Mike, you know how we do. He's gonna be a junior. We had been trying for 6 years, and then finally, I was pregnant. He came out squalling, biting his fist, 9 pounds and 10 ounces, 22 inches long. I held him in my arms and cried. I turned to my husband and said, look at our beautiful baby. He has 10 fingers and 10 toes, all there. He had a head full of black hair. I looked at those eyes looking at me and held my tiny hand holding my finger. I was in love. My pretty, soft baby laying quiet in my arms. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Papa gonna buy you a mockingbird. And if that mockingbird don't sing, Papa gonna buy you a diamond ring. And if that diamond ring turns to brass, Papa gonna buy you a looking glass. And if that looking glass get broke, it's sad when glass breaks. Bad luck, they say. I watched him grow up full of wonder. I remember when he started walking, he looked at me and started to laugh as if he had discovered something. My baby. As he got older, he was always asking questions. So many questions. Why, Mommy? How come, Mommy? Sometimes it was hard to keep up. So we went to the library and got books and more books. The other mothers looked at my son and said, how old is he? I smiled with pride and said, he is 5.5. They smiled with me and nodded in appreciation. He was our little prince. When a child is young, they have the wonder and the curiosity to discover and to learn. There's always something lurking in the back of your mind. The nagging feel of fear and dread of stepping over a boundary. All is well until someone steps on their dreams and mashes their hope into the dirt. You try to hide them, but you know that hiding doesn't protect them. They need to know what's out there. They need to be aware. And as hard as we want to protect them, not telling them what it is like to be a black man in America is leading them to the slaughter. I thought I had time. Elementary school. Something happened inside. He came one day, walked through the house. What's wrong with little Mike? His father smiled and said, boy's growing up, he'll be fine. But if it will make you feel better, I'll go see him. An hour later, they came down laughing and roughhousing. I asked my what was wrong. He said, pains. He likes a girl and she doesn't seem to like him back. We both laughed and all was well, but somehow I realized that my boy was not coming back because we turned a corner today. few weeks later, little Mike asked me if he could go to a friend's house. I had the mother's telephone number and called to make sure it was okay. She said the boys would be playing outside. She said she could keep watch. Little Mike asked me if he could walk. Figured it was just 3 blocks away, so I said yes. The mother said she would send him home before dark. My husband and I were just enjoying the time after he left, talking and laughing. I pulled out my bowl to make cornbread. We were having little Mike's favorite, chicken stew over rice with cornbread. We sat listening to jazz. Two hours later, we heard the doorbell ring and knocking. I thought, little Mike has a key, so why is he ringing the doorbell and knocking like that? Mike went to the door. I could hear our neighbor crying. My heart stopped. I dropped the spoon. She came in and asked if little Mike was wearing a black jacket and cap. She said there were police everywhere. People were out in the street saying a child got shot. He was wearing a black jacket and a cap. Witnesses says that he was jogging down the street, coming back home, and saw a boy racing across the street. He stopped and started jogging again. He had earphones on listening to music. The police called and told him to stop. He turned around. He was getting ready to get his phone out of his pocket to turn it off. And they shot him. My baby. They shot my baby. They shot my little Mike. He had a cell phone in his pocket, a cell phone. Not my baby. Mom and I went to the station. There was so much noise. That is when I realized it was coming from me. Oh, they got bigger and bigger and swallowed me whole because my child was gone. The only child I had. I kept thinking that my unarmed child was shot for a cell phone. I guarded my son, watched over him. He was a good boy, an obedient child, didn't cause us any trouble. His father said, "You can't drive him anywhere. Let him go to a friend's house. He's only going to be gone for a few hours." The cops said that he was afraid for his safety. Witnesses said that he has earphones on. The officer told him to stop. He didn't hear. He pulled the earphones off and was pocket phone to pull it out so he could turn it off. How was my child a threat? How? He was all I had. He had one child. I had one child. My baby is gone. Mike took me home. We cried with one wrecking anguish, great wrecking sobs. I screamed. I had no voice. Why? He was a good boy. He didn't get any trouble. My baby. The police came to talk to us. I refused to see them. Mike told them to go away and said our lawyer will be contacting them. I can't eat. Sleep comes in form of a pill. I wrestle with it, exhausted. Finally wins the challenge. I hurt. laying in my room in the dark, not interested in the light or the sounds of life outside my window. Mike shielded me during the funeral and held on to me at the gravesite. It is raining in my soul, pouring, flooding. I know he hurts too. We both do. That was 3 years ago. I'm still struggling with the pain of losing my son. I was playing the tape over and over. We were so careful. We watched him, took him everywhere. That one time when I thought it was safe and there was no risk, they shot my son because they thought he had a gun. He had a cell phone in his pocket. He was reaching for his cell phone. Children, why don't they get the benefit of the doubt? Why is it that Black mothers have to beg and plead for the lives of our children? Why is it that our children are no safer today than they were 165 years ago? Why? Why?
They look away. We are people in bondage. How we feel don't matter.
They look away and make excuses. We are invisible to them.
Pay no mind to the woman with the melancholy. She better work lest she be whipped. A woman whose soul is full of pain.
Pay no attention to the woman whose soul is flooded with pain, who keeps getting caught on thorns, trying to reach the light.
Pay no attention to those women behind the curtain.
How it served them better to think that despite all their cruelty, we wouldn't flinch. Better to avoid the question of our humanity than to acknowledge corrupted soul. The sensation of being whipped, burned, chopped would slide down our backs. Our inheritance has been the desperate pleading to make the pain stop. There was the pain of humiliation and helplessness because you were owned, not your own man, but the property of another. They raped our women and defied us to say or do anything. They sold our children, and counted the dollars, and declared our families and unions disposable. Well, 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 well. Mm-hmm. A Black man's blues. We created the blues, born of Southern misery and Northern invisibility. Yeah, those long, hard dirges trying to dull the jabbing and stabbing pain, while washing down homemade brews with names like a White Lightning and Uncle Moe's Hooch and agape. A singer's sad, wailing words, and the call and response from folks so used to being ground into the dirt. The guitar chords hung in the air, drifting from backwater places, allowing men to sit cloistered in the darkness crying. I lost my baby, she's gone away. I lost my job, I ain't got no pay. What am I gonna do to chase these blues away? Langston kept declaring the plight of the darker brother. He asked the same question all his life. How long? How long are we gonna be forced to eat in the kitchen? Now, you probably think that doesn't apply anymore, but it does. I mean, we free, ain't we? You know, men are supposed to be strong, leaders, and warriors, and conquerors. But what do you do when you feel like you live inside of a black cloud? Surrender is not an option. Black folk always had trouble. I heard, get over it, suck it up, deal with it. You don't reveal your fears to the white man. That's what we were taught. Now I ask myself, what does my life matter anyway? We have folks running around out here screaming about save the whales, cats, dogs, elephants, rainforests. A debate about the necessity of a Black Lives Matter demonstration. I was always anxious, you know. I remember my mother would tell me, stop worrying so much, just stop thinking. But it was something that just seemed to cling to me. See, I was a good student in school, breaking through the stereotype that we don't have what it takes to achieve. Matter of fact, I was an exceptional student, which sent them into tailspins because they were trying to push me down that pipeline, and I refused to go. So my parents sent me to a private school on a scholarship. So the white kids could talk about the poor Black boy and imagine him living somewhere between misery and desperation. I was the Black boy. Someone they could hold up as a shining example of what a Black child could become if they just had the chance to escape the stranglehold of poverty. They couldn't wrap their heads around the fact we were not poor. I was the one they came to when they wanted to discuss the problems of race. The one they talked to carefully about all those angry Black men with their hoodies and their sagging pants and those cold, blank eyes. Like, what's up with that anyway? Could you shed some light on that? My name is Jelani Kadir Jones, which translates to mean full of strength, powerful Jones. Now that's a name, huh? Full of strength, powerful Jones. When I came to this private school, they asked me, well, why did I have that name? Were my parents from Africa? Then they said, were they Black Panthers? Were they radicals out there saying awful things about white people, protesting every cause that came along? And I would shake my head and laugh, but I don't answer, which irritates them because you know they have to know everything. I was one of 9 Black students in a white private school. I learned, but I hated being there. Ladies and gentlemen, it is possible to elevate the masses. We started with this one here. Paul, look at him. Observe that he doesn't have those affectations. You know, that aggression, those angry looks. that walk, that talk. I breezed along, but I kept feeling this queasiness that increased time I had to take a test or when I walked into a room full of white people. It happened sometimes when I was studying, or sometimes at nothing. I felt anxious. I felt like I was always on display. See, I had to represent. I alone was responsible for the progress of my people. If I fail, we all fail. I had a panic attack my freshman year in college. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding in my chest. I said to myself, Jelani, you too young to be having a heart attack. I laid on the floor of my dorm and I was thankful for the coolness. And it passed. I didn't say anything. When I did go to the health center, they told them what had happened. First thing they asked me was, did I do drugs? If I had taken something. And I got mad because I didn't do drugs. They kept looking at me suspiciously. Then they said that I should take a break when I started to feel anxious. And that was all they said. Fact was, I didn't know how not to feel anxious. I graduated with high honors and went to grad school. The anxiety increased. Then depression started, and they became tag team emotions. I was the only African American male in most of my profession. Can you imagine? I was an engineer, and they were asking me if I was lost. I started to drink because I wasn't coping. When I got home, I'd have a cocktail, and I could feel the anxiety just slip right off my shoulders. I got depressed because I couldn't handle the anxiety. I was anxious about my drinking, and I hinted to a friend about what was happening with me. He told me I was working too hard and suggested a gym. So I exercised before and after work, and it seemed to be working for a while. But then the old familiar feeling of a vice grip came back because my workload started to increase. The old black tax had been enacted when my coworkers discreetly had work shifted my way so that they wouldn't be overwhelmed. They didn't seem to care that I was working long hours. After all, I was the spook who sat by the door. In their eyes, not being there was a consequence of affirmative action. So I had twice the work of my white coworkers. And I got the plastic fake smiles and the, how you doing, Jelani? And it never dawned on them that I was more qualified than all of them. The anxiety ramped up. There were new projects and more deadlines. I had insomnia. I was averaging 2, maybe 3 hours a night. I couldn't seem to turn my brain off. I took uppers so that I could function during the day. And at those times, I met deadlines, worked ahead, and felt like I could leap tall buildings in a single bound. Yeah, I was Superman. Everything about me was going at ferocious speed. And then in the morning, I woke up feeling like someone had stabbed me in the face with a frying pan. I could barely get out of bed. There was a black hole in the middle of my room. And I watched as it moved closer and closer and opened its mouth and swallowed me. I had waves of depression that crash, throwing me on shore, and then pull me back out into the water. The uppers didn't take care of the anxiety. I called my secretary and I told her I had the flu. But then I started having the flu at least every other week. My boss came in, he called me, and I was put on an action plan. See, I was being pulled further and further away, and I didn't know how to get back to shore. See, I was drowning. And then one day, I thought, just let go. This world won't miss you. No one understands your pain. Just take the pills and get it over with. What happens to Black men when they admit to depression or anxiety? I'll tell you what happens. People move away from you like you have the plague. A Black man is relegated to a special kind of hell, the hell of isolation. Being a man is sucking it up, getting over it. You're supposed to be that pillar of strength that everyone leans on. So what happens to a Black man when he tries to admit that his world is a hostile place? And he's scared, he's tired, he's disillusioned. Where does he go? Where is his hiding place? We are raised not to reveal too much of ourselves, and especially to the white man, since the Black man feels that he's part of the problem. So how does he go to the white man for help? I knew that anxiety had always been a part of my life. I was sad about being anxious, and I was anxious about being sad. A friend of mine rescued me just in time. I went inpatient for a month, and a doctor prescribed medication. And I also have a therapist, a brother, someone that understood what I've been going through. Now, part of the therapy was group. I told this man that he must be out of his mind if he thought that I was going to sit in a group and tell a bunch of strangers about what I was going through. And he didn't say a word. He just nodded quietly. He said, "There are Black men dying every day, committing suicide because they have been so crushed by this world." He told me to tell my story, to save my life, and maybe someone else's. He said, "Jelani, your blues ain't like their blues, but it's all the same. Still blues."
Hello, my name is Khadija Tillman, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and practicing mental health therapist and owner of Sankofa Family Counseling Services. So Sankofa is a mental health practice here in Rochester. providing mental health services as well as specialized trauma services to individuals, adults, children, and families here in the Rochester community. And we also specialize in providing care by clinicians of color for people of color in our community. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder and what that may look like in an individual, and then followed by, so post-traumatic stress disorder is it's a medical disorder experienced by a person who has had a particularly stressful or traumatic event in their lives. So an example could be like a natural disaster, a sexual assault, perhaps witnessing someone being physically assaulted or murdered. And sometimes we have what we call complex trauma. So perhaps you've had a repeat number of adverse events that have happened in your life, or particularly your childhood. Maybe you grew up in a household where a parent was particularly verbally or psychologically harmful to you. Or maybe you went to a school where you experienced a lot of bullying over a period of time, over and over again. Or maybe you live in a community that is, not safe. Maybe there's a lot of violence. Maybe you've had a lot of issues with the police, or the community has had a lot of issues with the police, violence and, domestic violence and poverty. Like all of those things can also be traumatic for a person over a period of time. And even if you don't have a full-blown PTSD diagnosis, if you're dealing with some of the things that I'm talking about and you're noticing that, that these feelings, your interactions with people, they're interfering with your life. You're having a hard time creating meaningful relationships. You may have a hard time keeping work. You may have a hard time connecting with community. This could be a sign that something could be going on, and it could be related to trauma that you've experienced, or some other mental health challenge that you may be dealing with. And as mentioned earlier, we have lots of resources in the community. And we, in addition to Sankofa, we have a whole network of Black mental health providers who want to connect with the Black community, who want to fight through stigma of mental health and help people to heal from trauma and mental health difficulties. So one of the websites that is a great resource if you're looking for a therapist is Psychology Today. So Psychology Today is a national website where many therapists and private practice who aren't linked with the specific agencies like U of R or Rochester Regional Health, they'll have a profile on that website. You can read about a therapist, see if that person takes your insurance or meets your financial criteria, is a good fit for you, and try to connect with that person to see if you can get some work done. We also have some support resources in the community, such as the Mental Health Association, who provides support and peer support, meaning peers are people who have also dealt with mental health issues to help people navigate the mental health system, and just general provide support.
Duck, duck, goose. Duck, duck, goose. Look at you. Long, graceful neck, wide, waddling hips, with the lovely color on your lips. Honking, honking, dear, dear goose. Goose got, not the ducks, just the goose. At a party one night, dancing to Swan Lake, bathed in light, close, sweaty, excited about moving from the shallows into the center of the pond. Pulse quickened about a potential bond. Proximity of his body. Suddenly there was an electric shock. And Goose got. Duck, duck, goose. Duck, duck, goose. Sip and slip, slide and ride the cool wave of wine and beer or whatever else was near. Not pausing to ask, what's in that drink? You didn't think. Standing at the brink. Look out! Blurred lines. Distortion of light, then the sound of a roaring train that night. Amtrak leaving on track 4. All aboard! A tender goose was their reward. Poor goose, struggling through a fog of disbelief. Mind staggering, filled with grief, then shattering. Poor goose, your mournful honk that no one heard over the sound of the train. Your crying was a sad refrain in the dark until the caboose emerged and disappeared down the track. Poor goose lay naked, her downy feathers scattered all over the floor. But there's more. In a flash, sadistic victors added to the insult. And took some pictures. They put it on Facebook so everyone could see what a goose looks like without her down. Making poor goose the subject of talk all over town. Duck, duck, goose. Duck, duck, goose. Dearest goose, you got because you were loose. From the pictures, it is clear to see that your skirt was too short and as tight as can be. So there is no crime. What were you doing there that night? Dancing to Swan Lake in a thin veil of light. How can we know what happened to you? You can't remember? That's what you said. Were you coerced? Forced? Or did you willingly climb into that bed? You can't remember? You can't remember? Did you scream? Did you fight? What really happened in the bedroom that night? You have no case. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a disgrace. Here you have a goose that claims that she is the victim of a crime. There is no evidence. So is it fair to say that these men might do time? It was testified that she willingly went into the room. This is a shame. The sex was consensual with the men that she named. After all, she admits that she swam from the shallows to the center of the pond. She was excited by the lights and she drank heavily that night. She came there looking for something. What was it she wanted? What did she say that would cause 3 men to take her that way? We find the defendants not guilty. You are free to go. Justice was served on a platter of goose, you know? Duck, duck, goose. Duck, duck, goose. So she returned to the pond that day, hiding in the reeds, keeping others at bay. She stays out of sight, afraid of attack from anything and anyone that might throw ugly words at her back. Pond is a different place now. She remains in the shadows, afraid of the light, all because of what happened in a house on that night. She is caught in the memory of the train that roared in the station and caused all that pain. Duck, duck, goose. Duck, duck, goose. Walking across the campus in late afternoon, she remembered what happened and ran back to her room. She shut the door and turned out the light to blot out the memory of what happened that night. She stopped going to class. The whole month went past. Dear Miss Goose, you are going to fail out of school. Attendance is important. You know that's the rule. Duck, duck, goose. Duck, duck, goose. What happened at that party was sad. It started out well, but it ended very bad. So she is ashamed of the things that were said, but they lied. She was given a roofie and taken to bed. What do you do? Everyone is talking and whispering at you. After a time, she was not seen during the day. She seldom comes out, afraid of what they will say when she walks around the town. Imagine their claims of her ruining their lives. They are free. She can never be. Duck, duck, goose. What can she do to redeem her name?
Thelma was mean. But at least we were all together and the place was clean. She made us do chores every Saturday. Before we could eat, we had to make sure the house was clean. Thelma locked up the food so we can only eat when she said. April was hungry. So I started to steal so we can eat. And it was easy. Thelma didn't know about me. So she would leave her purse in the chair, not thinking that the kids would go in it. And I did. I went down to the corner store and bought cupcakes, corn chips, and cookies. We hid the food so that we can eat when Thelma was in one of her moods and decided that we needed to be taught a lesson.
What kind of lesson do you teach a child who is already afraid of the dark? When you close the door and shut off the lights, what does she see when she holds up her hand and the blackness of the room swallows up the form of her fingers? But she keeps struggling to find them. So she feels like she has disappeared. She is now invisible. What kind of lesson do you teach a child who is already afraid of the dark, when the only thing she knows is fear and hurt? Where does she go to hide from the things that she cannot see? How does she protect herself from a hostile world? The bumps and bruises that she has sustained, the scars that she wears on the inside, deep craters. They are infected and swollen, the disease spreading across her understanding and inflaming her judgment. She does not know how to shield herself from the onslaught because she is just a child.
We lived with Aunt Thelma until we tried to confide in a social worker that we were hungry, and she locked up the food. My brothers and sisters told her that we couldn't eat until the house was clean. So the social worker betrayed us and told Thelma what we said. She scolded her and said that young children needed to eat and said that we were hungry all the time. I saw this stupid expression on her face while this white woman was talking to her, and I knew it wasn't good. As soon as the social worker left, Aunt Thelma went to her room and got that extension cord, and when she came back in, she was swinging like a slave master. April started crying and was trying to hide. She heard my sister screaming. She hid in the broom closet and she was screaming, "Stop it, stop it." I got angry. And when I heard my sister screaming, I took over. I was going to take matters in my own hands. I got a knife and I tried to stop her. I didn't mean to cut her. It was pretty deep. But then she stopped whipping me and started to scream. I mean, there was blood everywhere. She called 911 and told them I was trying to kill her. I dropped that knife and ran out the house. And when I knew we were safe, I let go. And April came back. She was crying. I told her to shut the hell up. We all did. We were scared too. She stayed quiet and hid in the garage. And the police were looking all over the place. They took Thelma to the hospital and my brothers and sisters were taken away. They finally caught me. And I was sent to a place that was really a prison for kids. I got jumped by some girls. And since April couldn't handle herself, I stayed out most of the time.
Then one night, an aide came into my room. He took me down to the cellar. He knew I was afraid of the dark. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel his hands. I could feel his weight. I felt him inside of me. And he told me that no one would believe me. And I told the social worker, and she called me a liar. When I tried to run away, they brought me back and they kept me locked in the room. I want my mommy. I don't want to be in a dark room. Mommy?
Am I speaking to April?
No.
Can you tell me your name?
Trina. And I am 8 years old. I want to go home. Do you know my mommy is home yet? I'm afraid of the dark. Please don't turn off the lights. Please, please. Don't leave me by myself. I'm afraid.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Christy Hagans, and I'm an African-centered psychologist, a professor, and a community healer. I'm a co-founder of Safe Black Space, which is a developing nonprofit that provides community healing circles, specifically with a focus on helping people of African ancestry to heal and thrive in the midst of racial stress and trauma. Today, I'm going to provide a brief overview of post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, while integrating the context of racial stress and trauma in the experience of Black people next. So what is PTSD? It's a disorder that occurs as a result of experiencing a trauma. And trauma is defined as a life-threatening experience. So this is something that can happen directly to you, but it can also result from seeing something happen to someone else, or even hearing about a devastating event. And traumatic experiences can include things like witnessing a murder, being raped, surviving a severe car accident, but it can also be a result of experiencing a natural disaster, like a flood or a fire, or even having a major illness like cancer or severe COVID-19 symptoms and hospitalization. And in addition, experiencing gun and community violence can also cause PTSD. And while not included in the official diagnosis of PTSD and the DSM, which is kind of like the dictionary of disorders for mental health professionals, we know and recognize that ongoing incidences of racism and oppression, such as the killing of unarmed Black people by law enforcement, can be and is traumatic. So what happens when you have PTSD? Well, it can impact you in lots of different ways, like with your eating and sleeping, with your ability to focus, concentrate, and work. It can also impact your relationships with other people and loved ones. There are some specific and distinct symptoms of PTSD, things like re-experiencing that traumatic situation, maybe through flashbacks or nightmares, feeling on edge or jumpy, which is also called a hyperarousal, in addition to avoiding situations, people, or things that might trigger these symptoms, remind you of these things. So in general, there may be many Black folks who are carrying the burden of PTSD for any variety of reasons and may not even know that they have it. So thank you for your attention to this brief overview of PTSD. If you're interested or need some support around it, I invite you to find a therapist near you. To find a Black therapist in particular, you can do a search of the Association of Black Psychologists website, at www.abpsi.org. Another resource is BEAM, which stands for the Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. And they have a virtual web wellness directory for Black people. And you can find it at www.wellness.beam.community. And there you can search for not only a virtual therapist, but other holistic providers such as acupuncturists, yoga teachers, herbalists, and many more. And then finally, if you're interested in learning more about Safe Black Space, the community healing circles that we offer for people of African ancestry, you can check us out online at www.safeblackspace.org.
Kaleidoscope mirrors and prisms make things look different when you turn
Greetings.
blue.
I'm Dr. Derek Wilson, a licensed eligible clinical community psychologist,
We are the people
engaging
of the
in
Kaleidoscope,
psychological assessments of children and
hiding our
adolescents through
pain
Monarch Family Services
in
and
continuous
director
shapes
of the Integrated
and
Behavioral Health
City
and
was
Wellness,
young,
Inc.
shimmering,
I'm here to present to you a
vibrating,
brief
promise.
model of the Ubuntu
Way
positive
back
mental
when
health.
white folk looked
When the
around
spirit is well
happy
and
that they
whole
were
and healthy,
there were new
the soul
opportunities.
being in
And
reality
then
of
the
Ubuntu
new
is
arrivals
characterized
poured
by
in, black
interdependence
folk,
of our
new
humanity.
competition, reaching out and trying to get a piece of the promised land. We moved from space to space, searching and pushing pawns in a game of poverty. We became captives in the inner city. The officials ignored the erosion and decay as the city succumbed to urban blight. And white folk beat a hasty retreat to the other side of the mountain, then disappeared into the suburbs, waiting for a clear day. The boundaries changed. The players went from being pushcart peddlers to pushers peddling. They became overlords in a twisted serfdom where those that defied them had to pay reparations or be vanquished. They walked through the blocks with colors, warriors without a cause, no real fight. They held court on corners where the bleary-eyed and buzzled came sniffing and scratching and stumbling and staggering from the trap houses and dark holes, presenting their offerings and a pittance in the hope of continued high vacant stares and shallow faces with sagging skin and bones that peek through garden nothing, wanting nothing. I lived in that community, in a safe house, aware of the overlords, the warriors, and the war. Goose was my main man. We called him Goose because of his long neck. He'd lead the way when he walked. He just kind of clopped along when he was young, still goofy and unimpressed. That is, until the day a mortar hit his house and turned the world into blood that flowed in the street after his older brother was a casualty in the war with no cause. He pulled in, he didn't struggle. He nodded and then he followed. Then he lost his downy feathers. Goose grew into a warrior and enlisted in the army, patrolling demilitarized zone to report intruders and suspicious activities and any infractions of the enemy that looked like him, but wore colors of a different army. His long neck became hard and thick. Then something happened. He became cynical and irrational. Skirted along the DMZ, shouted obscenities at the enforcers and the overlords and dared them to enter his territory. His eyes glazed with hatred and anger, and he swore to avenge his brothers, to avenge his name. He cursed both armies because they could not explain the reason for the fight. Although on quiet days he mumbled and cried, confused, wondering when the overlords would put down their weapons and stop the war. Why were the enforcers patrolling the streets with no apparent motive but to add to the chaos? He came over and paced the floor, shouted at the enforcers for their brutality disguised as law and order, and the rival warriors without a cause. He saw the concrete crumbling and realized that the warriors, all of them, were caught in a pathetic game. There could be no winners. They were trapped like rats in a maze of city blocks that looped and it curved back to the same beginning. That's when he decided to take off his armor and go home. He had enough. He laughed at the stupidity of it all. The overlords fighting senseless battles of the streets and territories they could never own. And the innocent people trapped behind enemy lines, the fires and popping of pistols. The night that he made the decision to go home, he started to see tiny feathers begin to sprout, crushed against his chest. The downy softness that he knew as a child, clopping along and innocent. He became Goose again. He decided that he would take a new direction and fly south. And he would make the journey because his wings were strong. He talked and he got excited about leaving, about finding a new flock. He would leave at first light. Walking down the path, he waved and smiled, and he didn't see the car coming around the corner or the gun pointing out the window. I shouted, "Duck! Duck! Duck, Goose! Duck! Duck!" The bullets caught his body, jerking him around, and he fell. And the overlords laughed. The tires screeched as the car mowed into the darkness. Right there on the sidewalk, he fell in front of my house. I ran and cradled his head, and he was gone. I screamed, I shouted, I cried. I heard the sounds of the sirens in the distance, then coming closer as the enforcer's light and noise covered up the sounds of my screams. My tears mingled with his blood. I was yanked to my feet and slammed up against the car as if I had a shot Goose. And my goes, it went on a blip, and I was like, "No!" And notice of my tears, I whispered, "Duck, duck, duck, Goose." Goose was gone, not the ducks, just Goose. The soft downy feathers were all new, scattered near his body, covered in blood. That is not all of that thing.
Children and adolescents through Monarch Family Services and director of the Integrated Behavioral Health and Wellness, Inc. I'm here to present to you a brief model of the Ubuntu positive mental health. When the spirit is well and whole and healthy, the soul, being in reality of Ubuntu, is characterized by interdependence of our humanity in relation to each other's humanity. Therefore, the factors that establish this positive mental health is that of connectedness, competency, and consciousness. So when you feel a sense of belonging to others, such as family and friends, taking pride in your skills and abilities to successfully function and maneuver through social demands, and having awareness of family history, group history, ethnic history, and national history, builds the demarcation of demonstrating positive mental health. So mental health includes our emotional, psychological, spiritual, and social experiences. Therefore, when we begin to establish ourselves on these particular factors, we begin to demonstrate what is deemed to be healthy for us. One great example of demonstrating positive mental health is that when an anthropologist tried to test the Ubuntu within African children, he asked them to run to a tree to see who would be the first to get the fruit. They all held each other's hands, ran to the tree, and was able to share the fruit together. With that said, I want you to chant these words: Buka Mukati, Yabuka Kuimbazi. The divine in me heal the inside, the rest of us heals the outside. Hotep. to successfully function and maneuver through social demands, and having awareness of family history, group history, ethnic history, and national history builds the demarcation of demonstrating positive mental health. So mental health includes our emotional, psychological, spiritual, and social experiences. Therefore, when we begin to establish ourselves on these particular factors, we begin to demonstrate what is deemed to be healthy for us. One great example of demonstrating positive mental health is that when an anthropologist tried to test the Ubuntu within African children, he asked them to run to a tree to see who would be the first to get the fruit. They all held each other's hands, ran to the tree, and was able to share the fruit together. With that said, I want you to chant these words: Buka Mukati Yabuka Kuimbazi. The divine in me heal the inside, the rest of us heals the outside. Hotel.
There is a rich legacy that lies in our grandmother's garden, not among the tomatoes, collard, or squash. It was the place that she went, alone, trying to understand, struggling with sadness and anger that sparkled like fresh dew on the vines in the sunlight.
The place where they tried to bury their hate, watering the soul with tears only to come back to see that there was a strange plant that grew there and thrived.
The grandmothers, one of the collective, remembering sorrow that spans the century. Their people, they endured so much, mumbled and screamed, cried and warred, creating sad songs, glad songs, sexy and mad songs.
The people that took up knives and guns and cords and spat out angry words to each other. The people that were afraid to love themselves.
The people who tried to fly above the misery, but came crashing back to earth. There alone in the garden, feet stomped, frustrated, screamed, shouted at the heavens, but there was nothing but quiet. He was alone in the dark. They were alone in the dark too.
They found a kaleidoscope and picked it up and amused themselves with the shapes and colors and movements and moods. Ah, she loved it so much. It passed to others, and they looked in. They began to wonder if they could hide from everything that hurt. So they became the fluid motions, turning slowly and not wanting to stay the same for too long. Look at the pretty colors, never the same.
Their bodies disappeared. They could see themselves changing. They were something else. They were the goddesses of love and joy, the sun rising, the cool water that parched dry lips. But it was only there that they could be free, keep the world at bay.
Kaleidoscope. Mirrors and prisms make things look different.
Kaleidoscope. Mirrors and prisms make things look different when you turn on.
Kaleidoscope, mirrors, and prisms make things look different when you turn the tube.
Kaleidoscope, mirrors, and prisms make things look different when you turn the tube.
Kaleidoscope, mirrors, and prisms make things look different when you turn the tube.
We are the people of the kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope, mirrors, and prisms make things look different when you turn the tube. We are the people of the kaleidoscope, hiding our pain in continuous shapes and brilliant colors. Kaleidoscope, mirrors, and prisms make things look different when you turn the tube. We are the people of the kaleidoscope, hiding our pain in continuous shapes and brilliant colors.